Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, my name is Leah and most of my videos are focused on unsolved crimes and mysteries. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back and thank you so much for supporting my channel. It really means a lot. So the case we're going to be talking about today, it's about a 6-year-old boy that went missing in 2011. His name is Timmothy Pitzen. I've been studying this case for the last 2 weeks and I have been watching all the surveillance footage over and over and over. And I found something very unsettling in this footage. And I can't really figure out if I'm reaching or if I'm onto something. But if I'm onto something, then this is huge. It's really huge. So I want to share that with you today, and there's a few other things that I want to discuss as well. So if you're ready, let's do this. Jim and Amy were a married couple that lived together in a beautiful house in Aurora, Illinois. Before they met, Jim was struggling with his health and went through chemotherapy. When the chemotherapy was over, Jim was told by his doctor that the chemotherapy most likely made him sterile. So he wouldn't be able to have children. Amy also had her struggles with mental health. She had a very hard upbringing and her dad had been a very big problem in her family. What exactly took place is unknown, but it left Amy struggling with depression, insecurity and anxiety. So she was on medication. She also had 3 divorces behind her. In 2003, Jim got a phone call from the hospital. They told him that Amy had tried to unalive herself with sleeping pills and she had fallen off a cliff. She survived, but she had some fractures in her back. After Amy came back home, it came out that she had tried this before. It was before she met Jim, and she had parked her car on the train tracks, but she changed her mind in the last second. Months went by, and later in 2003, a miracle happened. Amy found out that she was pregnant. It almost seemed impossible because the doctor had told Jim that he most likely was sterile. But miracles, they do happen. So in 2004, Jim and Amy, they welcomed a beautiful baby boy that they named Timothy. They were very proud parents and loved Timothy more than anything. Years went by and they seemed to be the perfect family. Of course, like all other couples, they had their disagreements and ups and downs. But all in all, they were very happy and created so many memories together as a family. But in 2008, everything came crashing down when Jim found out that Amy had been seeing, texting and talking with her first ex-husband. They had even made plans to meet for lunch when Jim was out of town. This really hit Jim very hard and he gave Amy an ultimatum. Either you stay here with me and Timothy, or you can go back to your ex-husband. But just know that if you go back to your ex-husband, I'm gonna go for full custody of Timothy. And this really scared Amy because she didn't want to lose her son, but she knew that Jim, he would probably get full custody because of her mental health history. So Amy, she decided to stay with Jim. But when the trust in a relationship is broken, it's really hard to get it back. So from here on, their marriage became very, very rocky. They would have discussions, they would argue and be fighting a lot. It was not going well for Jim and Amy. On May 11th, 2011, the family woke up in the morning. Everything seemed to be perfectly normal until another argument started. Amy had taken her medication and Jim felt she looked a bit off and told her he didn't feel comfortable by her driving that morning. So he decided that he was gonna drive Amy to work, which was only 3 blocks away from their house. and then after he would drop off Timothy at his school. After he dropped both of them off, Jim he drove to his workplace. He had no idea what Amy had planned behind his back. Just about 30 minutes later, after Jim had dropped off Timothy, Amy told her co-workers that she wasn't feeling well, so one of them gave Amy a ride home. When Amy arrived home, she got in her car and she drove to Timothy's school. She went in and told the staff that they had a family emergency and she needed to pick up Timothy. Together, they left the school around 8:15 a.m. and then they drove to a mechanic to get a full checkup on her car. They told her that it was going to take a few hours, so one of the people working there, he offered to drop off Amy and Timothy at the Brookfield Zoo. After spending a few hours at the zoo, they went back and picked up the car, and then they drove 46 miles to the Key Lime Resort where they checked in and spent the night. In the meantime, Jim had gotten off work and went to pick up Timothy at school. The staff in there looked very confused when they saw him walk in and told him that Amy already picked him up. Jim got a bit annoyed and a little bit angry, and he tried to call and text Amy to ask her what was going on. But Amy didn't answer her phone and she didn't reply to any of his texts. He called her friends and family and asked them if they knew where Amy was, but nobody knew. Jim tried to calm down and wait for Amy and Timothy to come back home, because they had an argument that morning and maybe Amy just needed to cool down. The next morning on May 12th, Amy decided that she didn't want to go home. So she drove 160 miles and checked in at the Kalahari Resort in Wisconsin Dells. Along the way, she had stopped and bought some new clothes and some toys for Timothy, and they spent all day in the resort. The next day, on May 13th, Amy and Timothy, they checked out of the Kalahari Resort, and then they drove 130 miles to the Sterling Rock Falls. Amy finally decided to return some of all the calls that she had gotten on her mobile phone. She called her mom back and assured her that everything was fine. She just needed a break from everything and told her that she would be back home in a few days. She also called Jim's brother and told him the same. He tried to encourage her to return home, and he got a really unsettling answer. Amy asked him if he didn't trust her and told him that her and Timothy, they were just fine. She also said that Timothy is my son, I can do with him what I want. He heard Timothy in the background and also spoke to him very briefly. And Timothy, he sounded fine, he was just a little bit hungry. Jim was still at home waiting and didn't understand what was going on. But by this time his anger was gone and he was starting to get really worried. So he decided to call the police and report Amy and Timothy missing. The police didn't put out an Amber Alert because Timothy was with his mother. She didn't do anything criminal and they didn't feel like Timothy was in any danger. Later that day, Amy is seen walking into a dollar store where she bought paper, envelopes, and a pen. But Timothy was nowhere to be seen. After that, she is seen walking into a supermarket in Rockford where she bought milk and crackers. Timothy was still nowhere to be seen. She then checks in at the Rockford Inn motel all by herself around 11:30 a.m. The next day around 12 a.m., the cleaning lady in the Rockford motel knocked on Amy's door. Nobody answered, so she decided to let herself in. But to her surprise, the chain was on the door, and when she looked inside, she saw Amy on the floor and there was the red everywhere. It looked like a crime scene, but the police, they found a note written by Amy, and it was therefore ruled a suicide. In the note that Amy left behind, She had a message for Jim and her family. She said that she had given Timothy to some relatives that would love and care for him. And she also assured everybody that Timothy, he would never be found. And she also said that she couldn't take the chance of Jim hurting Timothy because of her choices. And very sadly, she was right. Timothy has been missing for 13 years and he has never been found. So I've been studying this case for the last 2 weeks very, very closely, and I found some very unsettling footage that I want to show you. I think I might be able to prove that Amy and Timothy, they were not alone in the Kalahari Hotel. They were meeting someone there, and they also left at the same time. I'm gonna show you some footage now where you see Amy arriving at the resort. And I want you to look up in the right corner. You see a parked car. And when Amy pulls in next to that car on the left side, she immediately puts the car in reverse and drives back out just to move the car to the right side of that parked car. And while she's parking, that parked car is blinking at Amy on the right side, like he's trying to show her where to park. Do you know what I mean? Like a signal. He's with the lights. Who is this guy? And then you see Amy and Timothy get out of the car, and Amy is not stupid. She knows that her husband is looking for her, and she probably knows that the police is looking for her as well. So she don't want to be seen with this guy on camera. So her and Timothy, they walk into the hotel first to check in. And then you see one person, this guy, he gets out of that parked car and he takes out a trolley and some kind of bag. And then when you look at Timothy and Amy in the reception, waiting to check in, they keep looking over at the entrance area to the hotel, like they're expecting someone or waiting for someone. And then at some point, it actually looks like Timothy is communicating with someone. He's pointing his finger, trying to show this person that's unfortunately out of camera range, but he's trying to show this person something behind the hotel staff, or maybe he's trying to tell this person you have to come here to check in here. I don't know, because there's no audio in this video footage, but it definitely looks like they're communicating with someone, and Amy is actually also looking to her right, and sometimes she's smiling. And then also at one point, Timothy and Amy, something happens that makes them turn their head at the exact same time, looking at the entrance area. And first I was thinking, maybe there was a loud bang or some commotion or something that caught their attention and they just looked like a reaction. But then I decided to rewind the footage and watch it again, because I wanted to see how people around them reacted, if all of them were looking in that direction. There was no reaction from anyone except for Amy and Timothy. I think someone called them out by name or something like that, and that's why both of them looked at the same direction at the same time. There was no reaction from anyone else. That's really strange. And then I noticed that when Amy arrives at this hotel, she walks in the main entrance. She checks into the hotel. The day after, when she's gonna check out, she also goes to the reception and check her and Timothy out of the hotel. But she doesn't walk out the same door as when she arrived. Because if you look at the footage where Amy and Timothy, they're leaving this resort, it looks like they went to the basement and used a completely different door. And I noticed in all the footage that I've seen, Amy is always looking after Timothy. She's holding his hand. She opens the door for him. She's in full control of him all the time. She's really looking after him. But in that last footage where they leave the resort, it looks like she's running. And Timothy, he's right behind her. It looks like she is in a hurry to get out of that hotel. And she don't want anyone to see her. There's a camera on the outside of that door that also caught them on video. And when Amy, she storms out of that hotel, guess what? The man with the trolley and that bag is right behind her. Who is this guy? Who is this guy? Amy and Timothy, they're moving so fast that they caught the attention of another hotel guest. This person, when he walks by Amy and Timothy, this person is looking at them like, whoa, what was that? Was it because they were running? I don't know. But one thing is for sure. Right after Amy leaves that resort, the man with the trolley and the bag is right behind her. So who is this guy? And could he be the one that's been racing Timothy? We don't know. Do you think I'm reaching, or do you think I'm onto something here? I think it's very unsettling, and I think it's even more unsettling that law enforcement have been saying all along they have been checking this footage over and over and over, and they don't see anything wrong. I don't understand how they can't see anything wrong on this footage, because I think this footage tells a full story. Please let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you think I'm reaching, or do you think I'm onto something here? And that brings me to my next point, and what I'm gonna say now might be a little bit hurtful and maybe a little bit disrespectful, but I promise you that's not my intention. I'm just trying to think outside the box and look at every single possibility. When Jim was going through chemotherapy, his doctor told him that he was most likely sterile now. He wouldn't be able to have children. But a few years later, by some miracle, Amy was pregnant. And nobody knew how that could happen because Jim was supposed to be sterile. And then after a few years, Jim finds out that Amy, she's in contact with her ex-husband. She's been seeing him, talking to him, and texting with him. And she actually had plans to meet him for lunch when Jim went out of town. I can't help but wonder, how long has this been going on? And how long has she been seeing him and talking to him? Is it possible, And I know this is very hurtful, and I really, really apologize. I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings. But is it possible that Jim isn't the biological father of Timothy? Is it possible that Amy's ex-husband is Timothy's real father, and maybe that's where she brought him, and he is raising Timothy? I don't know. I'm just brainstorming, trying to think out of the box. I'm trying to think of anything possible. I have no idea if Jim and Amy ever did any tests to prove that Timothy actually was Jim's son, or if Timothy in fact is Amy's ex-husband's son. I don't know. I think this whole case is horrible. It's always very sad when children are involved. The reason I'm bringing this up is because in the note that Amy left, she wrote, "I can't take the chance of Jim hurting Timothy because of my choices." That makes you think. It really does. What choices could Amy make that would make Jim want to hurt Timothy? It doesn't really make sense. What makes her think that whatever choices that she made would make Jim want to hurt Timothy? The only thing I can think of is that Jim, he completely lost it when he found out that Timothy isn't his biological son. That's the only thing I can think of. I really can't think of anything, nothing that Amy would do that would have consequences for Timothy. If you know something, let me know in the comment section. Jim actually said something in an interview that gave me the chills. He said that if it ever came out who's been raising Timothy, this person would get another knock on the door, and he should probably hope it would be the police, because Jim knew what he was capable of. It made you think. It really did, because there's been a lot of rumors about Jim abusing Timothy and Amy, but I didn't see any evidence of that at all. So I am not gonna go into that. It just gave me the chills when he said that. Before I end today's video, there's one last thing that I want to mention, and that's the letter that Amy sent to her mom. I have seen so many videos where people, they read that letter out loud, but there's one part of that letter that nobody mentions, and I can't stop reading that part over and over because it is so weird to me. The letter has all the usual things that people normally write in those kind of letters when they're gonna do what Amy did. There's the explanations, there's the I love yous, there's I hope you can forgive me, do you know what I mean? But in the last part of that letter, Amy, she decided to write, "I was working on a picture quilt for you. I'm sorry I never finished it. It's in the bottom of the brown cabinet. I got it from Grandpa Fry, the one in the dining room." To me, that's a very, very strange thing to write in this kind of letter. And I know what I'm gonna say now is gonna sound like I took it direct from a Hollywood movie. But I'm thinking, could this be some kind of message from Amy to her mom? I have no idea because I haven't seen this quilt. But could Amy have put a letter or some evidence or something inside that quilt, and this was like a message for her mom to get her hands on that quilt because that would explain everything? I don't know. I don't know, that part of that letter, it just really stood out to me because I think it's a really strange thing to write in a letter like this. I don't know, what do you think? So that's it for today's video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Do you think I'm onto something, or do you think I'm reaching? I don't know. Let me know what you think. And until the next one, take care and stay safe. Bye.